This is Energized, a podcast about simple ways you can improve your energy. I'm Dina, a naturopath, personal trainer and wellness coach with 14 years experience working with a wide range of clients to help improve their health, fitness and overall energy. Hello and welcome to this week's Energized podcast episode. I have another amazing guest on this week. This week, I have Anita Tomecki. Anita, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I love the way you just said my name. So well. I get very excited.
Amazing. I'm a big names person. So if someone doesn't get a name correctly, I like to make sure that we get the right pronunciation because my maiden name is Friedman and it's spelled fried man. So I thought, when I got married, it would be amazing. People would start, calling me Dina Savitz. Wouldn't be a problem. And then I realized, no, it's Savitz. That's what everyone calls me. So I'm big on names. So yes, glad that I could get your name correct. But Anita, let's get straight into it. Tell me, what is it that you do and how does it relate to energy?
So I call myself a human behaviour expert. And so what that means is I work one-on-one with people. I work as a speaker. I run workshops, various different group events. And basically what we're doing together with myself and the clients is really, it's facilitating a process for the client to start to fully understand how they do their thinking, how they do their feeling, how their personality has been constructed through childhood, through various woundings, and really to get us love, and how we are running ourselves today as if we are still pretty much a 7-year-old.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. So, tell me more about it.
Well, I was going to go on to say there, how does that relate then to energy? And so basically, as human beings, for those, listening that may have heard this or may have not before, we are made up of energy. We are complete energy. And so as I work with people, I'm working with them with their mind energy and their body energy. Yep. So what I mean when I say mind energy, that's our thinking. Yes. Yeah. So you can't touch energy. You can't touch your thoughts. So whatever's going on in the mind is us creating energy, as thoughts.
Yep.
And then that is the same in the body. So people may not have heard before, the saying that emotions are simply energy in motion.
Yes.
And so what happens in our mind through our energy is creating then what is going on in our body and vice versa. So it's just energy moving through in thoughts, in feelings, looping, creating, and a lot of the time creating some quite torturous, stuff for ourselves.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's fascinating work. It's just absolutely amazing. It's been life-changing for me personally, going through the process. I was in therapy for about 8 years of my life before coming over to Australia. And although I love that process, the moment I started learning more about, the coaching modalities, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, the energy pieces of the body, I've learned so much more about myself than I would have ever known simply going through a traditional therapy process.
Yeah, it's amazing. So as a naturopath, I use homeopathic medicine a lot, and we talk a lot about energy being, or emotions being energy in motion, and energy being physical and mental, and wow. So talk me through a process. So when you first, I guess, meet a client one-on-one, what does it look like?
So what I do is I work with people on a minimum of a six session program, which is over 3 months. So Typically what a first session would look like would be, obviously hearing from them, what are you here for? Mm-hmm. So for people, it can be anything. People go, what's your niche? And my niche is human beings that have thoughts and feelings. So there is no niche in terms of whether it's, it can be very good for branding to niche in something. But for me, it's whether you're looking for a relationship, whether you're looking for love, whether it's self-worth issues, whether you're looking for purpose, whether you want to get on better with your partner, your family, whether you've got anxiety, whether you've got depression, whatever that is, it's a human struggle, and so there is nothing off limits in terms of what we talk about. But the most important thing is, are people ready to really get down deep into basically the construct of their personality and their egoic self? So what we do in the first session is we set out the goals of what they want from the process. And what I always say in that first session is, let's have goals, but don't be limited to your goals of today. Because what people find out through the process of working with me, and probably, is quite normal through a process, is people get to find out so much more about themselves than they could ever imagined. You know? So, people may think that they want to find their purpose, or they think they want to find love. And it's not saying that we don't work towards that, but what we're doing is we're looking for what it is that makes them not love themselves, that they think they need something outside of themselves to love. What is it that they think a purpose is? And mostly what's happening is people are just feeling uncomfortable within themselves, so they're looking for external sources, whether it's love, whether it's purpose, whatever it is outside of them, because they want to fill a hole that isn't about love or purpose. It's about some deep childhood woundings that have happened, maybe at school, getting called a certain name. It doesn't need to be, that you've been sexually abused to have trauma within us. So what we're doing is we're working towards finding out what happened in childhood to start meaning that we don't trust, that we don't feel safe, that we don't feel enough. And once we can start to realize that's what the struggle is, we can start from there to work towards what needs to happen for us to feel whole within ourselves without any external intervention needed from outside sources. We've got everything within us to make ourselves feel better.
Yeah, right. I love that concept. But for anyone listening who, this kind of thing is all brand new, I guess questions for me that come up as well are, is this like, do you take someone through a bit of a hypnosis or a meditation, or is it through just questioning that you're finding out these things?
Yes. So there is multiple processes that people can go down with various coaches. So mine is personally is questioning. So some people prefer hypnosis, but for me personally, if you can find stuff out through hypnosis, you can find stuff out through the right questioning. It's just whether you are willing to go there. With speaking, some people feel more comfortable if they're under hypnosis, but if those answers are there under hypnosis, they are with you. They just need some like, you need to be in a safe space. You need to feel somewhere where you're not judged, where there's a lot of love there, and where you are comfortable to start going to those places that you think that aren't possible. So I'll ask people questions about their childhood, and often people might say, I don't know, I don't have a memory of that. And then I will probe them and say, well, what if you could know something? What memories do you have from childhood? And there hasn't really been any clients that haven't, when that question's been asked a second time, that they haven't been able to pull on something. Now, God, that seems irrelevant. It's like the fact you even have that memory from 30 years ago, there's a reason for it still being with you. And that's because it's shaped and formed you.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You mentioned early on, from the age of 7, is that a specific age, or was that just a random number?
Well, so basically what's been, the findings through human behavior, it has been found that from around the age of 8 to 12 months old, we start having an awareness of something other than ourselves. Like a baby will start having awareness of its mother, whereas before that, there's just nothing. So basically our ego starts to form at around 8 months old, and our core formation of our ego is between 8 months and up to about 7 years old. So they're the key formative years where we are watching, and we are taking in the world, and we are matching our parents' behaviors, our caregivers, behaviors, or we are mismatching them. So we're not silly as little kids, we are watching and we are taking in so much information, and we are making choices about what's the safest way, what's the way that gets me love, what are the behaviors, because we look at kids and obviously they've got different personalities, and you've got families where there might be siblings that have grown up in exactly the same way, maybe just a few months apart, twins even, but they don't turn out the same, even though they've had the same external environment. But how we are taking in that external environment is absolutely individual to us, and we are doing it based on what is going to get me the most love? What's going to keep me safe? Yeah. Is it being noisy? Is me being noisy the thing that gets me love from my parents? It gets me seen. Is me being a quiet child the thing that gets me praise from my parents? What's the thing that is going to serve me best to make me feel worthy, safe? So it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. As a parent, it's making me think as well.
It does. And, you know, this is the thing, like when I work with people
Yeah.
can, you know, especially when they've got kids that are around that age or just over that, they're like, oh my God, you know, and it's like what I say to them, because I go, oh, what do I need to do for my children? It's like, you don't need to do anything for your children.
Yeah.
Work on yourself because they are watching. That's all you got to do is work on yourself, because children, they're not listening, they're watching.
That's true.
Get off your phone, but then we're on our phones all the time.
I know.
They ain't listening, they're watching.
my 6-year-old's just like started getting really into reading, and he loves looking over my shoulder when I'm on my phone. And so it's not even, you know, it's an unconscious thing that I'm doing, sitting on my phone. And I said to him the other day, you can't look over my phone and read what's on my phone, because I don't know what's you know, he could read anything on my phone. But yeah, you're right. And I thought about it afterwards as well. And I thought it's one of those things that, you don't want to be sitting on your phone saying, you know, you can't watch TV, you can go and read a book, but I'll just sit here on my phone, on my little screen, looking at, I don't even know what. But yeah, it's really fascinating. So when you do talk to people about their childhood and, you know, I know that there's so much more evidence coming out these days about things that have happened in childhood that formulate us as adults. What is it, once you kind of address something, do you see, like, what kind of shift do you see in people? Like what
it's a good question, because it's, you know, I mean, it varies from person to person.
Of course.
You know, for some people, some sessions, there might, you know, people can really just have real transformations in one session, right?
Mm-hmm.
For other people, they may have more subtle transformations. So, for example, I've got this client who basically what we're doing is we're identifying in those sessions what are the key driver programs that make up our personality. So it will be things like someone who may be worst case scenario thinking. They may be very judgmental. They may be, you know, really, let's say, agreeable with people. They may be perfectionists. So in the first, you know, what we're doing throughout the program is we're trying to identify the key 7 programs that make up the personality. And so basically, there was one client, let's say, you know, once, where he ran a very strong impatience program, to the point where he would be so impatient for, say, a night out, that he would go and he would end up being like 2 hours early to any event. And he said he used to hate it. He said, I used to just sit there on my own for 2 hours going, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
And so in one session, the question was, well, where do you think that started for you? And again, he was a bit like, oh, I don't know. And then as he sat with it, he went, oh my God, I've just remembered my dad left my mum and I hardly ever saw him. But we would have an arrangement that he would come round and pick me up. So, you know, every whatever day it was, once a month, I would sit by the window for like hours before, waiting for him to turn up.
Right.
And sometimes he'd turn up and other times he wouldn't. And this is like him talking at like 7 years old. And now he's like 40 years old. And he has this realization in that session. The reason that he turns up at events, you know, 2 hours early is because he's still that boy that was excited for his dad to show up. And he's still running that now. And for him, that was just life-changing in that one session. He no longer was 2 hours early to events, because you could see from there, it served a purpose back then to be, you know, to be 2 hours early and get excited. But now it was just not serving anything, you know, it was just, he was just frustrated with himself for being impatient. And so that's an example, you know, of someone finding that childhood memory and then going, oh my God, that makes it. And people go, that's just crazy. Like that is just absolutely crazy. How can I be doing that? And it's like, well, why would you not? If you formed that pattern, that then goes on autopilot, and we just spend the rest of our lives running in patience, not knowing why, but it's been embedded into us, and we've repeated it, that it's a normal thing to do. It's like driving a car. I know how to drive one, so I just, you know, don't think about it and keep driving every time I get in a car.
And so it was really even just that acknowledgement or being made aware of it that helped him shift out of that.
Yeah. And so what happens with it, it's obviously different for each person, but, for some people it will be, right, okay, so now I can see it. Now a process of change can start, So for some people it can be as immediate as that. They kind of get it. For other people, it's like, it can be a process of change. Like I had another client and he had a realization that when he was 11 years old, he got dumped by a girl and he'd never cried so much in his life. He was heartbroken. Here he is again at 40 years old, sitting down on the beach, and he has this realization that the reason he's never told a girl that he loves her, or had been able to hold on to a relationship for any more than a couple of years, was because he was so heartbroken by the girl that dumped him when he was 11 years old.
Wow.
So for him then, to have that then was to be able to go, okay, right, I can see that I've been protecting myself from pain for all of these years.
Yeah.
So now a process then starts in order to start to change that. So it's not as easy in that sense of just going for them, right, I'm just going to go and fall in love and be fine. It's now having awareness, in the next time a relationship's happening, to not run away from it, to be able to say I love you, because we're no longer that 11-year-old that's been scared to get heartbroken again. So it's a practice then of being able to start to open and be able to say I love you. It takes practice, right? It takes uncomfortability, it takes awareness. Or where am I stopping myself from saying it? Why is that? Because I don't want to be the 11-year-old boy anymore. So it's practice then.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. Those two stories, it's amazing. Wow. Okay. So I guess I'm moving a little bit away from there, but just because my podcast is called Energized, and a lot of my listeners are very keen to hear about things that can improve their energy. What would you say? And I know it's probably a little bit of a tricky question because there is a lot more involved, but would you have, I guess, a number one tip that when it comes to energy and the mind that you could share with us?
So obviously, I mean, this is not easy stuff that I'm going to be talking here. I'll try and keep it simple, but again, this is stuff that takes time and it takes practice. So what I'm going to say here is so when we talk about energy, so some people may have heard this again, some people may not have. And probably people that practice maybe meditation and stillness exercises more will be more aware of this. But there is a very subtle energy always running in our system. People that meditate for long periods over certain times and can get themselves to a place of real stillness will start to really, realize that there is that energy within us. And the only way we can access that is through stillness, is through a balanced nervous system, is through a quiet mind. Our brainwave states need to be in a certain, a certain way. You've got to, be well rested and all the rest of it. And so basically, the way that I talk about this, it's like we have in essence, it's like a let's say a volume switch. Mm-hmm. When our volume switch is at 0, it's off. We have access to the real subtle energy within us. But for most of us, we are constantly dialing that volume switch up. And what happens is we get further and further away from the subtlety of the energy that in terms of the calmness of us. And we're turning that up, and we're having thoughts, and we're having feelings, and we're having emotions, and we're worrying about what's going to happen today, what happened yesterday, anxiety, stress, all the rest of it. Everything's out of balance. And so what we're doing is we're in essence turning up that calm state of ours. It's the same energy, but it's kind of just being ramped up. And so it's to say the work that I do with people, it's kind of like it's a clearing process. So we are learning about our egoic self, we're learning about our thoughts, and we're really getting in touch with starting to watch our thoughts and our feelings. And once we get to the point of real understanding, which is quite a way down the process, we are then start to be ready to actually start to clear the thinking. So we're not thinking as much. And the less that we're thinking, the less ups and downs of emotions we're having, the more access we're then having to that natural, that real natural subtle state of energy that's always there.
I love that. I really love that. It makes a lot of sense. And as you say, definitely not an easy thing to achieve. But especially in today's day and age where there's so many distractions, right? With social media, news, and, what's been happening in the world over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But
and I think, we do say that, but we've always struggled as humans, regardless of social media, regardless of what's going on in the world right now. We've always, for as long as we've known, had thoughts.
Yes.
So even if there's not, massive of external, problems going on, we're creating our own. So it doesn't matter whether they're external to us, we're still making our own internal problems for ourselves. So, it's actually, I actually believe that COVID has been a very, great time for people to actually see that anxiety was actually always simmering underneath for most people. And what it's done is it's brought it to the surface. And I've had so many people come into coaching, which has been, they may never have done that. And we're not talking about the problems of today. We're talking about the problems of the past that have always been there for them.
Yeah, of course.
So this, the more shit that goes down in the world, the more we actually get to see more of ourselves if we manage to survive it. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing for our evolution as human beings, for that what is going on the outside is only ever a reflection of what our internals look like. So the more that we can clear our internal and get healthier on the internal, that's the way that the outside changes and not the other way around.
Yes.
So I think all of what's going on in the world is showing us how much we're struggling inside.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A wake-up call, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anita, it's so interesting. I have loved our chat today. I would love for you to share, where can people find you? Where do you like hanging out? Social media, website, share away.
So if you want to find me, Instagram or Facebook, so Anita Tomecki, just tap that name and I'm the only one on Facebook and Instagram. And if anyone wants to personal message me and ask me any questions, please feel free. Say that you've obviously heard this interview, and anything at all, please reach out and I'd love to love to have a chat.
Amazing. I will share your socials in the show notes of this episode. So it's easy. You can just click there and definitely follow Anita. That was a really great chat. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Anita. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in.